finally, a source of raw, real, and honest information on healthcare issues that matter most. Welcome to BS Free MD. From the latest medical information to how to stay sane as a doctor or a patient, no subject is taboo, no BS is allowed. Now, let's welcome your hosts, Doctors May and Tim Hindmarsh.
Well, this week is a mind blower. I don't think there's much I can say other than you need to listen to this because it's really going to blow your mind. I was completely fanboying out when our guest, Eddie Braun, agreed to speak with us. We have a lot of things in common and actually a whole lot of things not in common.
And I'm going to say, basically, you're going to learn what not to do at home, kids. Let's just say. And I would also like to say that this is the perfect time to have our sponsor on the show because it's full of disability.
Yes, it is.
So here's a quick message from MR Insurance, a small business that helps physicians with their disability insurance needs. Michael L. Relvis is a CFP professional and insurance agent committed to helping physicians nationwide with their term life and disability insurance needs. He provides an objective, transparent, and education-focused process that aims to help physicians make prudent decisions and avoid overcomplicating things. He exclusively offers own occupation disability insurance policies for residents, fellows, and attending physicians. And we really like Michael and know he's got your best interest at heart when it comes to disability insurance. We know he'd be happy to help you with whatever your needs are. You can find Michael at mrinsurance.com. I will put the link in, and feel free to call him at 1-800-817-4522. So just don't need him for disability insurance like Eddie does.
Okay, let's listen to Eddie, someone who probably can't get disability insurance. Here we go. Well, I'm taking the introduction of this one this week, May, because I'm kind of fanboying out again. We have Eddie Braun, who a lot of you out there may or may not have heard of, but I guarantee you every single person listening has seen his work and seen his work probably multiple times. Eddie has a 43-year career as a stuntman and is still performing stunts, believe it or not. I became aware of him several years ago when he completed Evil Knievel's work at Snake River by blasting a steam-powered rocket over the canyon. And he now has a documentary on Disney Plus called Stuntman, which, if you're me, you need Kleenex because I found it so yes. Moving. So, Eddie, welcome to BS Free MD. We just are so thankful for your time that you're giving us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm humbled at the introduction, and I'm privileged enough to that you guys warranted the time. So, thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. So, I think the first question I'm going to ask is, how many car wrecks have you been in?
I don't know. Suffice to say, I would say over 500 easily.
Those are purposeful car wrecks.
Correct.
Yes.
In one film alone, Blues Brothers 2000, which was the sequel to Blues Brothers, in one film alone, I did 26 massive car crashes. And that's just one film.
Okay. Oh gosh. Okay. Let's back up a little. I got to back up a little if it's okay. So, tell us how you got started in the industry doing this.
Well, I had no family or friends in the business in Hollywood. I grew up in Southern California, which I live still to this day. As a child, I met Evil Knievel. Okay. Now, in order to know who that guy was, to me as a child, in the 70s, this guy, Evil Knievel, was like a rock star incarnate. I mean, the man wore a cape. Come on. So I met him as a child, and from that moment on, meeting him, I didn't want to be anything else in life but like him, along with a complete generation of kids at that time. I wanted to be like Evil Knievel. So much so that my first injury after meeting Evil Knievel, I got on my Schwinn Stingray bicycle and attempted to jump a lot of trash cans. And I wrecked massively and broke my arm. But you know what? I was so thrilled because I was like Evil Knievel, even though my arm broken and had to wear a cast. But that morphed into wanting to become a Hollywood professional stuntman, in which I was lucky enough to start at 17 years old, and I've been doing it ever since.
So is there like stuntman university, or how do you said you decided you wanted to do this? How do you just decide to do that?
Well,
Or where do you go for training?
well, there is no formal training to be a stuntman. There's none. However, and especially at that time of period in time, it was the beginning of the heyday of the what I call the 80s cheesy action TV shows. You had Hardcastle McCormick, you had BJ and the Bear, you had the Fall Guy, Dukes of Hazzard. You had all these shows that were pure, just cheesy action. And I just doggedly showed up at sets and started to meet people. I just would never give up. I was a 17-year-old kid with basically nothing to lose and as stubborn as could be. And I befriended a couple of these stuntmen, and slowly over time they brought me in and tutored me, and it's kind of an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
You earn as you learn, and you work your way up the ladder. When I got in, they called it, you had to go through Peckerneck Tech before you ever got in the NFL. You had to be a Peckerneck, and you had to graduate Peckerneck Tech. And what that was is basically a hazing of doing all the miserable work. And if you could handle that for a while, then you'd slowly get yourself in. So
Yeah. No, I'm sorry, we have that in medicine as well. It's called internship.
yeah, pretty much same thing with stunts. You are a peckerneck before they ever even really look at you and acknowledge you.
Wow.
Interesting. So I'm seeing a theme here, and we'll get into it a little bit more as we go on with the interview. But this willingness to not give up is obviously a theme that's carried you through your entire life.
Oh, absolutely. In school, see, I had no big special skills that a lot of these stunt performers nowadays. It blows me away. These kids, they are super talented, whether it's gymnastic or fighting or any of these unbelievable skills. I had none of them. However, what I did have, and I learned this in school in football, I wasn't a big guy in football. In fact, I was rather small. However, uh, I could take a hit like nobody else, and I was tenacious in never giving up. And that carried me through football. I mean, even my coach said, "Oh my God, I don't know anybody else that takes a beating like you and still stays on the field." And that carried me into my adulthood and stunts. I didn't have particular skills, but I did have a set of balls, and I would go for it. And I always said it's not the hit you can give, it's how many hits can you take. And I just never give up, and am not, whether it's stubbornness or just tenacity or maybe a combination of both. I just ended up always being the last man standing in certain situations, and that gave me opportunities.
Yeah, I think that's one of the themes of life. I think the perseverance and the art of suffering. We had a personal trainer on a few weeks ago, and we talked about. And my theme is those who suffer best suffer least. And so you're going to have to put up with discomfort. But if it's discomfort with a higher purpose or calling, like fitness or working on your marriage or crashing a car 500 times, it bears a tremendous amount of fruit. Understanding that. So when you started back in 1980, how much of stunt work was hold my beer and watch this?
Well, to a degree, and that's the difference between a professional stuntman, which I call myself a stuntman, and a daredevil, right? There's a very distinct difference in the two. A daredevil is more the scenario of hold my beer. We'll see how this turns out. And I don't know if I can ever do this more than once. A profession, and the other thing about a daredevil, they do things to glorify themselves, right? A
Right.
professional stuntman, I always say I'm the face you never see. You never really hear about me. We work as a team. We work to glorify the film or the actor, and we work things out to where we can we get an outcome in which is pretty predictable and we can repeat. And so in the stunt world, there is there's a little bit of daredevil, but a professional stuntman calculates pretty much as he or she can. They calculate what they're doing for a desired outcome that can be repeated.
Right. And I'm a skydiver. I have about 600 skydives. Haven't jumped in a few years now, but it's interesting because I think of that sport and the people that are really good at it and have done it for decades. There's almost sort of a geekiness associated with the how compulsive you need to be able to do risky things well repeatedly, because it's objectively dangerous to jump out of an airplane and save yourself with a bag of silk. But
Yeah.
But you can do it in a way that's actually repeatable and has a huge margin of safety.
Yeah. Yeah. You bring up skydiving. That is the one profession or thing where the old adage, if at first you don't succeed, try again, does not apply.
No, it does not.
No, that's what I always told Tim, like kind of jokingly, but serious. It's like, if you're going to go in hard, because I don't want him to be half maimed from that thing. I mean, it sounds horrible, but
I understand.
I mean, so what you said, which makes total sense, is that you in your profession, I mean, these are calculated things you guys do. You're not just throwing yourself out there and attempting things that you're not sort of trained or I wouldn't say trained, but have sort of plotted out, correct?
Well, one thing about stunt work, it usually is never the same. And there is no textbook that you say, if I do this and I do this and I follow that, I'm going to get that outcome, right?
Right.
A lot of it is you are winging it. And in my film, it's briefly touched. It's called a swag that we use. And a swag is an acronym for scientific wild ass guess. A swag. But however, the swag is based on two things that are really important. And those two things are instinct and experience. Like, I may have done something similar here in my experience, and I may have done something similar there. And if I combine the two, an educated guess is I should get this outcome. Right. So a swag, a scientific wild ass guess, is based on something. It's not just a wild ass guess. It's based on instinct and experience. You get combinations of things that are similar to what you're doing, and you apply your experience, and you should get this desired outcome. but you still never really know. That's why they call them stunts. I mean,
Right.
when I crash a car and the director of photography say, where's the car going to end up exactly? My answer is usually, I don't know. I'll let you know after take one.
Right.
However, my experience and my instincts say if I go at this speed and I hit the ramp at this angle, I should end up over there somewhere.
Right.
So a
Wow.
swag is a scientific wild ass guess. However, it's based on a couple of fundamental important things.
So something really struck me in the film, and which is you're a normal person with a long-lasting marriage and 4 kids. We know we've been invited on other podcasts and have done marriage seminars and whatnot. And the thing that people freak out about is you're 2 doctors and you're still married for 30 years. How is that possible? And I'm like, well, educated people still stay married. So you seem, having hung around a lot of drop zones, mountains, etc., you seem to kind of not fill that high sensation seeker kind of vibe where, wine, women, and song. Here's Eddie blasting over Snake River Canyon in a steam powered lawn dart, and then the next scene he's joking around with his 4 kids and his wife of almost 40 years.
Well, first of all, I wish I could take credit for a lot of that, but I'll start off by saying I got a lottery ticket with my wife. I mean, I don't deserve her. I cannot fathom how I've put her through the crap that I've put her through because we couldn't be more polarly opposites in the sense of, I mean, we're grounded in certain things in common, of course, but she's very quiet, low key, and, sweet. Me, I come in like a hurricane. I'm loud, I'm clumsy, I'm audacious in some of my things. I just don't know for the life of me what Yoda mind trick I must have pulled on her for her to stay with somebody like me. So I can't take credit for that. You know what? I just got lucky and got a lottery ticket. Every once in a while, a blind squirrel finds a nut.
That's funny because it really reminds me a lot of Tim and I, although your wife's probably much smarter than me because I've gotten dragged into Tim's escapades because he makes it sound so fun and he's like, come on, you got to try this. So, I mean,
Well,
I'm the one that's gotten roped into doing all these sports with him. And then of course I'm the one that gets hurt and pays the
yeah.
price.
Well, I got to tell you, whether it be right or wrong, I've been in my profession for a long time. And I know, and in my profession, I've also been in Hollywood. And, I shield, it's worked for me. I shield my wife and my family from most of it. I compartmentalize.
Uh-huh.
Meaning I don't have to tell my wife and family that what I'm doing every day. At the end of the day, if it goes bad, I could possibly end up in a trauma center. There's no reason to tell them that. And so I shield them from a lot. In fact, if you didn't know what I did, you would never guess what I did. My house, there's not one picture in my entire house of me doing a stunt or anything to do with Hollywood. There's not one photo on any wall that shows all of that. So at home, I'm just the regular guy, the day, after I crossed the canyon in a rocket, the next day or whatever, I'm picking up dog crap in the yard and moving cars around and taking out the trash. I mean, you would never guess what I do for a living. And that's by design.
Right.
Because what I do is my job. It's not what I am. I'm not an adrenaline seeking junkie I'm just a regular schmuck, but my day job happens to be pretty exciting, but it's not who I am.
Okay, I think
that's huge.
Yeah, no, I'm getting chills. I think that's a really great segue into kind of, one of the big pushes why I wanted to talk to somebody in this industry or action sports or whatever is the whole concept of safety. I used to drive my kids absolutely nuts. They'd ask me, Dad, is motocross safe? Is skydiving safe? Is whatever? And my answer was always the same. No, because nothing is safe. And, I think that a life well lived is a life that has risk in it, but it's not reckless. Like there's a difference between recklessness and risk. I mean, you do dangerous things for a living. I still love riding street bikes, which is probably objectively one of the most dangerous avocations I've had. But you do it in such a way where you mitigate as much of the risk as you can. And that's what allows you to have a full life. This dedication to safety that we've really been almost in like a fear cult over the last 2 years has really just driven me almost around the bend.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. I like to tell, when I go in these meetings for these films or these commercials I do, I inevitably hear from the producers, well, we want to be 100% safe. I said, you want to be 100% safe? Oh yeah, that's our focus. That's our aim. I said, that's commendable. If you want to be 100% safe, we shouldn't do stunts at all.
Right.
Because there is a reason they call them stunts. Stuff happens. I mean, I tell them, hey, Michael Jordan, even Michael Jordan misses baskets in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff, it happens, stuff happens. But you can do these things and be as safe as you possibly can, and approach it like that, not approach it reckless. But, it's still stunts and it's still exciting. And if you're going to do that for film, it's going to be somebody taking the risk.
Right. And that's what makes it awesome and gives you that awe and that excitement and that rush and that feeling watching, like not just you doing it, but us watching it in the commercials, the shows, that makes it so incredible is because it is, I mean, that there's that risk and wow, look what happened. And, cool when the superhero guy, makes it through and all that kind of stuff.
One of the things that producers and people always say, and then I have to talk to them a little about, they said, we want to do this action sequence, with all these stuntmen. We want to do all this, but we don't want to hurt anybody. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, that again, very commendable. I appreciate that outlook. We don't want to hurt anybody. But guess what? We're going to hurt everybody. We're going to hurt them. We're going to hurt every single stunt man and stunt woman.
Yep.
And what I say is this: a professional boxer or a professional football player, if they're successful, every week they get hurt, right? What you ought not to do, and herein lies the difference, what you ought not to do is get injured. There's a difference between hurt and injured. Okay, it hurts. No matter what you do, it hurts to fall to the ground. It just hurts.
Yes.
Right? So I tell these producers, we're going to hurt every one of these stunt guys. Some of them we're going to hurt really bad, but we are going to compensate them for that hurt. And hopefully, God willing, we're not going to injure anybody, but we are going to hurt every one of them. And the only way not to hurt them is not to do the stunts. So once I get that definition in their heads, they go, oh, okay. It's like a light bulb gets turned on. Yeah, it hurts to fall. It hurts to crash a car. It hurts to get punched in the face. Those things hurt. You just hope not to get injured in the course of doing them.
But I think that is a beautiful segue for life, because life hurts. And oftentimes what we see in our work is we see people trying to make it not hurt. And then it hurts more. Is it more painful to be 75 pounds overweight or to have the self-discipline to eat less and do some exercise, which is uncomfortable, but then be blessed with a body that isn't as broken down, that's going to live longer, that's going to be able to do more activities. And that's just one example, but in so many things, right? It's like, I hearken this back, to Jesus, who said, in this life, you'll have trouble. The solution wasn't avoid trouble. It's how do you deal with trouble? How do you deal with risk? How do you deal with the fact that it's going to hurt? you know, a lot of the success in our marriage is we understood that we're going to hurt each other, but how we deal with that determines where we go. And some of those times where we've hurt each other has been unbelievably painful, but unbelievably productive in where the relationship was able to go. And
Sure.
so I love it where people can watch your show and go, wow, that was really crazy. That car accident actually hurt somebody, but they're not injured, they're not dead, and they like doing it. And that's the way life is. Because that's the
Yeah.
way life is.
Well, I snuck an Easter egg into my film, right? At the very end of the film, there's a line that comes across the screen that I purposely put there. And at first, Disney and everybody said, oh, you can't put that there. You cannot do that. It's just irresponsible. And I said, guys, no, I want that there. And I had this discussion, this exact discussion versus hurt versus injured. And after a long back and forth with them, they agreed and they let me keep that Easter egg line in my movie. So maybe at some point, rewatch the film, see if you catch the last line in the movie that's written. You can see it across the screen.
Okay. Yeah.
But
No, that it is. So perfect segue. Speaking of the film, when I heard that somebody was, rebuilding the Evil Knievel Sky Cycle and going to redo the stunt, I was like, oh, this is fantastic. It's going to be on TV. It's going to be amazing. I'm going to be able to watch it with my kids, kind of like when Nick Wallenda walks across
sure,
the Niagara Falls. Like, this is going to be, and then all of a sudden it was just like, what the heck happened to this thing? And then I had to watch it, I watched it online, and then I started following you online, and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense to me. Like, this seems like a complete no-brainer. The nostalgia of old farts like us connected to, Evil Knievel. I mean, I had the stunt cycle. My skydiving jumpsuit is still patterned after Evil Knievel. I mean, like, it's just insane, right? And so, like, what the heck happened there?
well, first of all, let me start by saying you'll be amazed at the fact that when I was a kid, I had an Evil Knievel lunchbox.
Yes.
Right? And every day I would eat my lunch and I would look at the pictures on the lunchbox, right? The
I
little
remember
picture.
all the boys
And,
that had those at school.
right. Well,
Yeah.
my mother, being who she was, kept everything of mine. So after she passed and I went through all the stuff, the lunchbox that's in the movie is my lunchbox
No
when I was a
way.
kid.
Oh my gosh.
And the thing that's really trippy is the picture on the lunchbox of Evil Knievel in that rocket going across the canyon is the picture I would look at every day as a child as I ate my lunch. And then as an adult, I got to recreate the exact thing that was on my lunchbox. Imagine how that felt inside.
That's just, there's like no words. Wow.
Yeah, and
It,
I'm
it,
actually, as we speaking, I'm looking at the lunchbox
Oh, do
now,
you have
which
it?
is
You should
which is
tattoo it on your body. Like,
well, no, but I will speed over. I don't know if you could see in my office.
oh, look at that. Oh my
That's
gosh. Yes.
that's the
Yes.
lunchbox that I, in my office. I, at home I don't have any pictures of any stunts, but in my office it's kind of like a clubhouse, and I
Uh-huh.
do have some pictures. Um, I have my helmet that I wore in a
There's your evil
case is
helmet.
there, and then of course I have my lunchbox.
Your lunch. I love that. Oh my gosh.
So of
That's
course I've got
awesome.
Elvis
Yes, of
because
course. That's
yeah, my
Elvis.
office is so totally separate from what my home
It's
life is.
wow.
So,
So I was gonna
uh,
say, so what you, I mean, for you, that was the obviously it's not, I mean, you would think it would be the penultimate to replicate that stunt and land and successfully pull it off, which you did. Um, did you ever dream like when did you start dreaming about doing the jump?
okay. In after a career that I'm pretty satisfied of in my life, I knew I had to start like winding down, I knew this just as a physically as everything. And I thought to myself, the whole reason I became a stuntman was because of Evil Knievel. I said, how cool, this was just a wild idea. I said, how cool would it be to finish out the one thing he walked away from, the one thing that he was unsuccessful at? How cool would that be to cap off a career like that? And I thought, well, wait a minute, let me think about this from a stunt coordinator's perspective, right? I'm a stunt coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
I did all three of the Jackie Chan Rush Hour movies. We had to come up with these action sequences and pull them off without like killing anybody, right?
Right.
So I thought, what if I looked at this rocket thing from a stunt coordinator's perspective? What if this was a James Bond movie or something? And they said, listen, you got to get a guy from point A to point B across a canyon in a steam power rocket. How do you do that as a stunt coordinator?
Mm-hmm.
And I started looking at it like that. I said, I could probably pull this off. So that's how it originated in my head, that I felt I could pull it off. And then I could use that as an homage, like a thank you and good night, like a mic drop from Stunt, saying, hey, I finished out what my hero started. Not doing something he failed. I hate saying Evil Knievel failed at it. I like saying I just finished out what he started. Same team, because I'm the kid he inspired.
Right.
A professional baseball player, if he comes in the eighth inning and closes it up, he's the first few guys that were pitching aren't losers. They didn't fail. They're just all part of the same team. So I figured if I could pull this off, I would finish it out, be the closer of what he started, and everybody could ride off into the sunset with a cool story. I mean,
I love that. I love
so
that.
so I got to go. There was a very purposeful reason I called my rocket the Evil Spirit and not the Eddie Braun. That goes back to the Daredevil thing. This wasn't really fully about me. It was about what inspired me for the career that I was pretty content with. And that was, Evil Knievel. So I figured I'll call my rocket the Evil Spirit, because it's in the spirit of evil that motivated me to get to that point.
And what, I'm just going to say, what I'm hearing is, you're a humble man. And I just know that in my life and what I've seen is that humbleness and ability to recognize, have that is what probably keeps you safe, alive, honest with what you're doing. Because you're right. Anybody that's going to be the daredevil, has arrogance, gets themselves into trouble, and doesn't live. And I grew up with a dad who's a bush pilot, and I know there was a lot of things that happened. And he said, there's no old, bold pilots, just old, smart pilots, because, we lived in northern Canada, and there was a lot of bad weather, and you really had to, you couldn't do crazy stuff. And it was kind of, some of the stuff was the same. He would come home and he wouldn't talk a lot to my mom or me sometimes if he was gone and there was trouble and it's 40 below and the plane didn't start, because it was, not the same as you, a little dangerous. But he lived and had a successful bush pilot career. He's like 85, and when a lot of his friends died. So it's that humbleness that I recognize.
I don't know about, I don't know how humble I am, but one thing I have been privileged and fortunate to watch, working in this profession in Hollywood, is I've seen a lot of these actors and actresses and directors, by and large, a majority, I won't say all, but a majority of them are narcissists. They're narcissistic. It's got to be about them. And all that's done to me is show me, God, I don't want to be like that.
Right.
I don't want to be that guy or that girl. So I've seen a lot of narcissism in Hollywood. I don't think it's any strange
There's no
fact that,
surprise.
right. So for me, my personality, I never wanted to be like that, nor did I ever feel entitled to be like that. So, I always hold in check, I'm just a regular guy, and I love that. I'm happy being a regular guy. I get to do some fun, cool stuff. I'm exposed to a lot of cool stuff. And you know what? At the end of the day, that's okay. That's enough for me. I don't need to be the grandstanding guy or what. I see enough of that. One of the one of the guys that I've always respected, never met him, but always how he was, and he was great, is the quarterback Joe Montana. You familiar with Joe Montana?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay. At the end of the day, this guy would win the Super Bowl. This guy he would very gentlemanly, there wasn't fist bumping and high fives and chest pounding. He would walk over like a gentleman and shake hands. The decorum of how he carried himself was very classy. And this guy, and that's a guy I always wanted to be like, Joe Montana. Always cool as could be, and carried himself like a gentleman. So the one thing I did ask for all the people that were involved with me on the day of the jump, the rocket, I said, guys, you got to do me a favor. If we succeed, if we happen to succeed, I do not want to see climbing on top of things, raising your arms in the air like you're the greatest, or chest bumping. I mean, YouTube is full of videos like that. And there's nothing wrong with it. That's okay. But in my world, if I have a say so, I would love nothing better to see a few handshakes, a few hugs, and that's it. I mean, life goes on. Because I didn't want this to be a self-glorifying thing. I just wanted it to be a cool thing that at the end of the day, everybody was really proud to be associated with it. And then then life goes on.
So,
Wow.
So, totally encourage people to watch Stuntman on Disney Plus. I watched it a couple times, and I really do. I don't know exactly what the chord is in it, but I find it incredibly moving because, there's that classic story of overcoming all of these difficulties. Having two networks chicken out, having to self-finance it, still making the documentary on your own, all of those, and then overcoming all of that in this absolute literal blaze of steam glory is just, I find it so resonant to kind of my soul.
And I'm glad. I'm so touched and humbled to hear that. I really am, because it means a lot to me, that people actually enjoyed it and got something out of it. I guess my main message, if someone said, what is the message you'd like people to take, for me in my life, that's gotten me by, is been my word. Let your yeses be yes and your no's be no. Okay. That's how I try and live I'm no angel, and I'm not, but I try and do what I say I'm going to do. As a stuntman, you better well do what you say you're going to do, because you will have no credibility if you don't. If you say you're going to do something, you better do it. Yeah. But how that translates in my life is I try and let my yeses be yes and my no's be no. So once I got started down this road, I had to do it because I told everybody I was going to do it. Unfortunately, I had to cross paths with a lot of networks. What you see in the movie is a condensed version of what I really went through. There were a lot of people that said yes, 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 and then instantly turned to a no, no, no. And I was already well deep into their yeses when I found out it switched to a no.
Yeah.
And I couldn't let that change my overall objective, which was to do it, or at least attempt doing it.
So was it risk? Was it lawyers? Was it what was it that because I just think this is such a no-brainer live television event. What was it? They thought that you're going to blow up, or what?
Well, it was a lot of everything. It was a little bit, there was risk, liabilities. Nobody really wanted to sign off on the fact that I could just blow myself up on national television. Evil Knievel had a famous quote, which was so true. Nobody wants to see me die, right? But they don't want to miss it if I do.
Oh my gosh.
That's the truth. Nobody wants to see me die. However, they don't want to miss it if I do. there were a lot of different reasons, some of them nefarious, of why different companies got involved and then why they didn't get involved. I'll give a quick for instance. There's one company, I won't say their name, but they have an energy drink that I don't even drink. I can't stand. But they're probably one of the top energy drinks out there was dying to be a part of this.
Mm-hmm.
However, the minute that I would have signed the deal with them, and they would have rewarded me quite handsomely, they wanted to change everything, even down to the color and paint scheme of my rocket and or the parachute. They wanted to become a big advertisement. And I thought to myself, I've seen so many of these other extreme sports, right? That even the color and branding is this energy drink. And usually the guys or women that are associated wear a baseball cap cocked sideways. If I see another thing like that, I'm going to go nuts, right? And I didn't want my project to reflect that. I didn't want it to be a commercial version of what I was trying to do, which was pure. But that meant turning down their money. When you turn down their conditions, you're basically turning down their money. And when that happened, then they don't become so friendly. They say, well, good luck even getting this off the ground if we're not part of it.
Yeah. So in order to stay true to yourself, I mean, you have to reject a lot of that because they want to change it to meet their
exactly.
their
I had to change a lot of things, or I would have had to change a lot of things, which would have taken away from the purity of what I intended to do in the first place.
right.
I'll give you just a quick, for example. I wanted nothing. I knew if I survived this thing, the first clue would be my parachute. If people saw that in the air, they go, oh my God, the parachute's out. He's going to live, we hope. I didn't want that to be anything else but the American flag. It's all I wanted because I'm so proud to be in this country that you have the opportunity to do whatever you want if you work hard enough. So my statement was I wanted nothing but the American flag. Well, even as so much as Fox or anything else were concerned, they said, well, wait, let's talk about this. This is a business. We owe it to our sponsors. We owe a fiduciary to our sponsors that, they're paying for all this stuff. The parachute, that, is a big piece of real estate that they'd like to advertise. We can't take that away from them. And I said, well, unfortunately, in my mind and my heart, I see nothing but the American flag. So if I got to pay for it myself, that's what it's going to be. And then, of course, I had to stick to that.
No, maybe that's what comes through so obviously in the movie, which is this honesty. May and I have patterned the podcast after, we can't be anything but ourselves. And if people like it, that's great. If it resonates with people, great. But if not, we're going to keep doing it because we love doing it and we love meeting really cool people like yourself. So, but people can sniff the BS from 10,000 miles away. And I'm trying to imagine a certain color of energy drink where you could literally make the rocket into to the can, right? That you've seen 19 gazillion million times at every motorcycle event or
yes,
games or whatever. And well, I mean, it really would be like, no thanks.
Well, the other thing to me is I knew in my heart, like if I were watching this unfold, I knew in my heart I had to really do this pure, because if not, I coined this, if I did it like everybody else would have imagined, to me, I would have been just a really bad Elvis impersonator. If I tried to wear a cape or I tried to go at it in a different way, I would be just a really bad Elvis impersonator. And I didn't want to be that.
Right. Wow. Yeah. And that's what's really fascinating about the story, where you take the parallels of of what happened when you did this and what happened with Evil Knievel, where, you know, Evil was a completely different person. He was truly a daredevil. I mean, he had a vault in his house in Montana with a gold-plated Harley filled with money and gold. You know, he had side women up and down every single state in the country. He did what, a couple shots of wild turkey before every jump. I mean,
well, I don't know that I totally disagree with that. Maybe I've been known to do, but the point is,
right? No, but I mean,
Evil.
Eddie was kind of an obnoxious narcissist to a certain
Yes.
degree.
Yes, you know? There's a documentary. I think it's the best one made of Evil Knievel. It's called Being Evil. It's put out. Johnny Knoxville put it out.
Yeah.
Right. It is by and far, I think, the best documentary on Evil Knievel. And it's the segue. It ends with my beginning, which I really love. If you watch the last part of it, is basically my beginning. But Evil Knievel, by self-proclamation, Evil Knievel was the king of the daredevils, right?
Right.
And I am not a daredevil, nor do I want to be a daredevil. I don't have the balls for it, and I don't have the personality for it. I'm a professional stuntman. Now, the two worlds do coexist, but I am not a daredevil. I would never call myself one. Like I said, I don't have the balls to be one, to be perfectly frank. Those guys are just out there, you know, they go for it. It's not that I don't go for it, but I'm way too much of a wuss to say that I'm a daredevil.
Yeah, I always thought the same of myself. I mean, my mother would always freak out. I'm like, oh, I just got, what did you do today? And I'm like, well, I went water skiing. I rode my motorcycle for an hour, and then I went to the drop zone and did 5 skydives. Oh, it's so dangerous. And I go, no, you don't understand how measured this is.
Yeah.
I mean, there's high sensation seekers, and I'm clearly one of those. But, so many, I mean, I was involved with 2 recreational fatalities, in a 6 or 8 month period. And the theme is always the same, right? It's the hold my beer, watch this. It's taking a risk that you didn't recognize was there. It's being bold where you have no right, being bold. And so, like, I've just really been obsessed with this whole concept of risk and how people will text in their phone, which is wildly more dangerous than me riding my motorcycle to Sturgis, but they do it all every day. They don't think about it because they don't see it as risky, because they always get away with it until they don't,
Yeah. It's one of the realities of life. I don't mind taking a calculated risk because the rewards can be so great internally, not externally, just internally. It's like the rocket thing. I thought if nobody sees it, that's okay, because internally I'll know I did it.
Yeah.
I didn't do it for everybody else. I did it mainly for myself and that inner piece of like, hey, I really did something that I think is cool. And primarily after that, I did it for my 4 kids. One of the best compliments I got when I got back from Twin Falls and I sat down for dinner with my kids, my eldest daughter said to me, well, Dad, I guess it's going to be kind of hard for any of us to say we can't do something when we just watched our dad work his ass off over the years and basically finish out his hero's dream.
Wow.
And to me, hearing that, I knew I succeeded. At that point, I don't care if anybody saw it. If my kids saw the example of how hard I worked and what I pulled off, maybe I set the template for them by example that, hey, go work your ass off and something cool could possibly happen.
No, I mean,
that's what it's all about, right? I mean, I think that's what it boils down to. For me, I mean, we're family people, and that's been our thing too, is always what examples are we setting for our kids, ultimately how we live our life and what we do. And that's
and then on top of that, the byproduct I could have never dreamed, the epic byproduct that I couldn't dream, is I have a film, a visual thing of an example that is in the Disney library long after I've been gone. So conceivably, my grandkids and my great grandkids and my great great grandkids can watch something, an example of my hard work and the success. So for me, I left something that hopefully will outlast me.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
that, how do you
Absolutely.
put a price on that? I mean, that there is no price on that.
So, which is fascinating because I love the family side of this, and that was something from a sort of outside trying to objectify the risk part. Like, did you ever get pushback from Meg or from your kids where it's like, Dad, this is too dangerous. We don't want you to do
Well,
this.
going back to maybe my selfishness, I shielded them from about 80% of everything, much like I do when I go to work. I mean, my family doesn't come to work with me. They don't really know what I do unless I choose to tell them. Same thing with my family was not even there on launch day, and that was by design. I
Mm-hmm.
thought to myself, if I succeed and everything goes well, they'll be able to see it over and over and over again on film if I'm successful. If I'm not successful and I'm splattered all over the canyon, that is not an image that I ever want to leave my family. Right?
Right. Right.
So I shielded them along the journey as there was, things didn't work out or there was technical problems. I wasn't going to share that with my family. Why would I? Why would I put them through that? It's not in my nature to do that. So by shielding them, I think I saved them the anxiety and stress and all of that. Um, that's how I was able to do it and justify it. Is why put them through that? I just didn't tell them a lot of it.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
mean, I understand that because then they're taking on this emotional burden and stress that they are totally like
Yeah.
unempowered to do anything about, and other than worry. So
Yeah. So
yeah,
I basically didn't tell them 90% of the problems of it. Or the risks involved. Um, Even so much is the night before that I was going to launch, I sprung it on my business partner who was there with me, a legal piece of paper that I signed and I wanted him to sign. And that was giving him the power of attorney to unplug me or make the medical decision. He looked at me and he goes, "Wow, that's a shot. You're springing that on me now." I said, "Well, I'm making my wishes known to you now, and I don't want to put my family through any of that emotional stress. Do we pull the plug? Do we not? Is he a vegetable? So I'm leaving that in your hands to shield my family from it, should it come."
right. Yeah,
Because
we
I
usually
didn't want my wife or my kids to have to labor over, do we keep him half alive or do we pull the plug? Or I wanted to shield them from it. Why put them through that?
yeah. We usually
So
advise patients to think about things like that sooner in their life before they're near the ultimate life decision-making step like you were.
Before they
It's like
crawl into the
it's like
rocket.
think about it like 10 years ahead, but yes, we
it's
totally
just,
understand
I'm
that.
not saying keep him completely in the dark, but why not be measured in the stress that you're going to give your family? You
Right.
know, why
Right.
put them through that? So, yeah, to go back to it all, I shielded them from quite a bit of the stuff by design.
But it's what strikes me in you telling us this is you can only shield people from that stress if you're dealing with it adequately. Like if you're coming home and you're a ball of nerves or you're anxious or you're
Sure.
draining a bottle of scotch every night, people are going to go, Dad, what's up with that?
Yeah, no. I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's like I tell my kids about fear, right? Because they ask me all the time. I'm scared of so much stuff. And they ask me, how do are you scared? Hell yeah, I'm scared. However, I'm scared about a lot of things. But I tell my kids, which is the truth for me, is it's okay. It's even healthy to have fears. It's how you deal with those fears that define you as a person. Do you freeze up and do nothing? Do you take them on head on and figure out a way to compensate? How do you deal with fear? And because it's a very real thing and it's a natural thing, I tell my kids it's okay to be scared. I'm scared all the time. It's
Right.
it's how do you deal with it? Same thing with problems. How do you deal with your problems? Do you deal with them and chip away, or do you fold or do you go drink? How do you deal with your problems? So I knew very well as problems, and several of them came up from different, all sorts of, I couldn't take that home with me and let it infect my family.
It's interesting because we're so good at talking about, how you deal with so many different emotions, and anger and sadness and all this, but fear is one that gets avoided a lot. And like you said, everybody has fear throughout their whole life. Doesn't matter who you are, and it's one of those things we don't talk about enough, but which we should. Yeah.
Well, and you think of what May and I have gone through. I mean, we've worked almost exclusively in COVID clinics for the last 2 years. And I mean, I've had people, my age that were positive at the beginning of the pandemic when we had really no idea what was going on. But, and just weeping, like, I'm going to kill my family. And just talking people off the ledge. It's like, no, you're not. You're going to be fine. You've been fine for this amount of time. You're going to cough for, weeks, but you're going to get better. And it's just, the power of fear is unbelievable. And it's been, and it doesn't really matter who's in power politically. The narrative just changes, but it's the same thing, right? Like, so you got to be scared of COVID, or you got to be scared of terrorists, or you've got to be scared of this or scared of that. It's like it's this universal club used to keep us in line. And that whole business of, yeah, you're scared, but just, how are you going to deal with it? How are you going to deal with it productively? How are you going to get through it? That's a good life.
Well, with stunts, which is, again, the classic thing between a stuntman and a daredevil, I run across guys all the time. I'm not scared of anything. I'll do this, and I'm not scared. And those are the people I steer so clear from, because if a stuntman isn't scared to some degree, then he either hasn't been doing it long, or he's not a guy that should be doing stunts, because there's always fear, and it's healthy. And I shy away. Like I said, I've run across people. I'm not scared of anything. I'll run into the wall, and I say, good luck with that, buddy.
Jeez.
It's just
right.
In stunts, you want people to have fear because
it keeps you alive.
Well, fear gives you a heightened awareness of what you should be concentrating on, and that is staying alive.
Yeah, right.
So fear is a very healthy thing.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's dosage. It's how you deal. I mean, it's like what Jeb Corliss, who's, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Jeb, but he's probably the most famous wingsuit base jumper in the world. He's got into shark cage diving now. And he said he's always scared of the stuff he does. But for him, it's like fuel. It fuels him to do a better job. It fuels him to do what he needs to do to be safe. It fuels that, and he obviously gets a tremendous amount of benefit at the end when it's over. But he never shied away and say, "Oh no, I'm not scared." It's like, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. People often ask me, were you scared to get in the rocket? Hell yeah, I was scared. Hell yeah. But, I felt a confidence that I had done everything properly, and everybody around me had done the things properly, that the outcome should be this.
So me, I know all of our friends and listeners are gonna, they're gonna want, if it's okay, gonna go down the road of, all right, so I watched the documentary, the show, and it's showing, what you're doing for a living, and you're rolling these cars, and there's all these cool crashes from all these movie scenes that we watch, and it shows you tumbling this car 3-4 times, and I'm just watching this because we watch NASCAR, and I'll see a crash or Top Fuel, and I'm just like, holy crap, and there's no airbags going off, and you look stunned, and I'm thinking, how many concussions and how many broken bones, and how much crap does this poor guy go through every time he does one of these? So can you share, what happens when you do those rollovers? Are you concussed? What's the worst thing that's ever happened?
Well, you first of all, every one, even when successful, every one of those crashes take a little bit from you. It's like I always take it back to a professional football player. every hit, every time a guy gets stuck, I mean, you know, if he's not injured, he's going to play the next day or the next week, but it takes a little from him, each one of those. And if you do it enough times, at the end of the day, you're going to pay a heavy price for all those hits and all those. Same thing with doing stunts. You know, when I get my bell, I call it getting my bells rung. You know, when I get knocked out or whatever, it takes a toll. Now, what is that end sum of the tolls? I don't know. I mean, no one really, it's different for everybody. I know for me at this point in my career, it hurts for me sometimes to even get out of bed. Just the
I'm not
pain.
surprised.
It hurts for me to do a lot of things that never used to hurt me before. So, you know, how many times have I been knocked out? I don't know. But I've been knocked out so many times before they even started studying the TBI and stuff.
Right.
Right. I don't know what effect is it going to have on the long term. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, they probably haven't been studying that in stunt people, have they? I mean, we know
no,
about boxing and football, but
yeah, no,
stunt,
they don't know. Have I gotten bloody noses out of a concussion? Yeah, that's not a
yeah,
good thing. When
right,
your nose, something's causing your nose to bleed because you get been KO'd pretty good. So I don't know the end result of the toll that it takes. I don't honestly know. I never thought I'd be doing this long anyways, which led to the, like, I might as well start winding down my career and trying to do it in a dignified manner, which
right.
led to the rocket, which led to, one thing after another. I'd like to get out while the getting's still good for me physically, and that's the end result of the planning now, to just produce films
Sure.
and not really get beat up doing them. And I
So do
mean
you
that.
get sidelined? Do you have a doctor on site that says, okay, you got knocked out too many times, you're like off duty for 2 weeks? Anything like
No,
that?
there's no
No?
regulation. No, there's no regulation. No, we
Wow.
call it in our profession, because it harkens back to the old cowboy days. The first stuntmen, a lot of them were just cowboys. You just cowboy up, and
Wow.
go back to work. When
Jeez.
when you figure you can tie your own shoes and walk out the door, hey, man up, cowboy up, go back to work. There's no regulation or no
What's
protocol or no. Like football
wow.
now has the
Yeah,
concussion protocol. We have
right.
none of that. We're stuntmen. Come on.
How many broken bones have you had?
I don't. Unfortunately, more than I wished I had. That goes the old saying too. You can't make a great omelet without
Yeah.
breaking a few eggs now and then.
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately though, I haven't had that many, but I have had. I like to say, and some stuntmen will disagree with me on this. However, many will agree with me. I like to say, if you've never been injured doing stunts, you either haven't done a lot of stunts or you haven't been doing very many big stunts. And like I said, some stuntmen will disagree with it, but by and large, they won't disagree with me. If you've been doing stunts for any period of time and you've been doing big ones, not just little dumb stunts, you will get injured. That's just the nature of the business. And if
Right.
you haven't been, it's kind of like motorcycle. My daughter asked me the other day about learning to ride a motorcycle. And I said, there's only two type of motorcycle riders. That's it. Just two types. The ones that have crashed and the ones that are going to crash.
Yes, I told Tim that all the time.
Well, but I had so many dirt bike crashes. I think I got that out of my system. But
okay.
that was the thing when I was doing multiple action sports, kind of even in the same day. I could go water skiing, and you might get stiff and achy, but you take a couple hits and it wasn't bad. Skydiving, usually that's not a big deal. But man, dirt bikes always hurt. Like there was no way to get around. If you were going to ride a dirt bike for any length of time, it was going to hurt.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, that's very much like stunts. If you do it long enough and you do big enough, you're going to be I would say my biggest injury was actually doing a stunt that I'd done multiple times. It just was a bad day to do it. it was in 2000 or 1999. I was working on a show that I'd been working on quite a bit called Walker, Texas Ranger, a Chuck
Oh, yeah.
Norris show. Yeah. And I did a jump, a pretty big jump, but it was just a bad day for me to do a jump in a car. And I had a friend of mine, a coworker, in the car with me. We together, we jumped this thing. Unfortunately, the wreck was so massive that unfortunately my friend passed away next to me in the passenger, and I broke my back in 3 places, and my pelvis. I broke my pelvis, and it didn't kill me, but boy, I was a wreck, and it killed the gentleman next to me. It was
Wow.
and it was a stunt that I had done numerous times. This was just a bad day to do it things just didn't line up that day. And it was just the worst outcome for a stunt that we'd done over and over again.
Wow.
But
Wow.
fortunately for me, I had to undergo a 9-hour surgery. And they put my back together and my pelvis and everything. And I was actually back to work not that I wasn't in a lot of pain, but I was back to work in like 2 months.
Jeez, 2 months. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but I wasn't falling down. I was barely walking on the set, but I could get in a car and drive it without crashing.
I thought you were going to say 6 months.
Yeah,
Wow.
so,
it was
like, I think-
about 2 months, and then slowly I rehabbed into, well, obviously it didn't keep me many years later from climbing in a rocket and throwing myself across a canyon. So I recouped from it pretty well.
Yeah, you should have heard when we were watching that documentary, and I see you landing, and I said, Tim's like, it's a big lawn dart, and I'm like, is he just going to go head first into the ground? And so the words came out of my mouth as I'm watching it. Just like, oh my gosh. Anyway, enough of that.
I'll tell you what, the rocket thing is nothing I would ever do again. Nothing about it was really fun.
Well, I mean, you could see people have to watch because you have the camera in the inside rocket cam, like looking at you, and it's just you feel like you're in there doing it with you. And yeah.
Well, I just so you know, I was terrified the entire time. Terrified. Even when the parachute came out, I was still terrified. I like to say it was different degrees of terror for me. It really was, because one of the little things, I won't go into details, but one of the little things was in this rocket, the weakest part of the rocket was where I was. We had an open cockpit, which means my head and shoulders were sticking out of the rocket. Well, that also happens to be structurally the weakest part of the rocket.
Right.
In one of our tests on something, the rocket folded in half like a taco right at the hole, the opening where I would be, which basically would have decapitated me at the shoulders, right? So as I'm coming in to the landing with the parachute, I'm still going way too fast. And I am praying, oh God, don't let me get decayed. Don't let this thing fold in half and cut me off at the head and shoulders. So even though the parachute was out, even though I cleared the canyon, even though as I was coming into the ground, all I could think about was decapitation, which scared the hell out of me. So it was just different degrees of terror of which people weren't fully aware of because they weren't in my shoes.
I'm like speechless. I'm gonna have to go back and watch it again. Now, I don't know if I want to. That you said that, and just like put it in perspective. I can't even.
Just know that watching the ground come up at the speed in which it was coming up, and me looking at it, I had nowhere to look but at it. I kept thinking, if this rocket hits hard enough, it's going to fold right where I am.
Right.
And we couldn't build it up. We couldn't reinforce it because of the weight and balance restrictions of the rocket. So there's no way, well, just make it safer in that air, cage it up like a car. We couldn't do that because of the aerodynamics, the weight, the balance. So there was no cage for me to really sit in. I mean, we reinforced it as much as we could, but by no means was it like one of the cars I climbed in with a full roll cage. It was a very weak little tin can that happened to be going 439 miles an hour, So, yeah, that was one of my fears, is that I would just be quickly decapitated. And I could see the ground coming up within a few feet. I knew I cleared the canyon. I knew the parachutes came out. All those things I knew, yet I didn't know what the end result was going to be. And it was coming up quick.
Wow.
So
No,
the whole thing was awful. There were, I say, different degrees of terror is all.
Oh man.
No, it really is. Yeah. No, this is just.
We're going to change the name now of this title to "Different Degrees of Terror."
Well, listen.
With Eddie.
In my world, none of it was a slam dunk. A couple of people said, "Oh, seeing the footage, you nailed. Once the parachutes came out, you look like you nailed it. You were happy all the way over." No, I wasn't. I was still. It was just a different degree of terror.
Yeah, it's really, like, oh, I survived the canyon. Now I'm really going to get messed up on the landing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I guess my point is, it's nothing. People say, "Are you going to do it again? Are you doing it?" Nope. One and done.
Yeah. One and done. You tick the box. You get it out of the park. That's it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. One and done. And I thank God that I managed to test him and he still let me survive it, because, I was pushing the limits there, and I would never want to test God that way again.
Yes.
Perfect.
That is a great, that is just fantastic. But I just love, I just find this so refreshing and I hope, obviously, people aren't going to, everyone or virtually everyone that listens to this is going to, not become a stunt person or try to blast a rocket across the Snake River Canyon or any of these things. But my hope is that people listen to this and go, you know what? Life is not easy. But it can be unbelievably rewarding, but you have to take up the mantle of risk and of some levels of pain to get better, to move forward, and to have an awesome life. And nothing in the last 2 years drove me more crazy than you'd see somebody and you'd meet them and you'd be in the store and they'd say, "Stay safe." And I literally would start to boil inside. I'm like, the last thing in the freaking world I want to do is stay safe. I want to stay awesome. I want to stay, happy. I want to stay aggressive. I want to do all these cool things. I don't want to freaking stay safe.
Yeah. And also never give up. It's easy to give up. Just don't give up. If you stay, focused and keep that drive, you can actually break through and achieve something that is kind of cool.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. This has just been an absolute honor and joy to talk to you. I had high expectations and you have far exceeded them. I think our listeners are just going to love this. And and if they want to really get a bit of a taste, May was literally getting some anxiety watching your movie. Definitely worth a watch. Stuntman on Disney Plus. Plus, Eddie got to meet one of my heroes, Slash. So it gets even
Slash
better.
is such a good.
All of your heroes, Tim.
Yeah, that's right.
Slash is a good buddy, and what a genuine, just a good guy. He too is an Evil Knievel fan. So the minute he knew that I was going to do that, he said, "I want to be a part of this. How can I be a part of this?" And because being a true Evil Knievel fan, that kind of bonded me with a lot of people.
Yeah.
That transcended. I briefly, I'll just tell you a quick little story. Is I got all the permissions from Homeland Security, from everybody, to launch a missile, right? Basically a missile. It did come down to one guy could have killed the whole project. And this was a guy that was like the head of the FAA, right? Because we're launching a missile across a canyon. He briefly signed off on it, saying, "Okay, don't kill yourself." And then he signed the paper with a common Evil Knievel quote. He said, "Eddie, happy landings," which told me he was an Evil Knievel fan.
Of course.
This is a guy I didn't even meet, the head of the FAA, but he said happy landings, which was a very famous Evil Knievel, would always autograph happy landings.
Wow.
No,
So-
that's really cool. Well, we will be coming to Southern California in a couple weeks, and if you need me to hang out with you and Slash, I have no problem with that.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, listen, listen, thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for watching my film. Thank you so much. I hope I didn't put your audience to sleep. Time to wake up, guys.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Thank you for that. Anybody, I'm a regular person. I'm very accessible. Anybody can feel free to either on Instagram find me, Crash for Cash, or on Facebook. Yeah, and just know on my movie, I tried my best. I cannot tell you whether you're going to like it or not like it. That's, up to you. But I can tell you I tried my best, and I am proud of every frame of that movie because I really did try my best. So I hope the people that see it like it. If they don't like it, just know I tried my best. That's all I can leave.
Outstanding. Well, fantastic. Again, thank you so much. And we will link all that information, your Instagram, Facebook, and so forth in our show notes. Thank you again, the one and only Eddie Braun.
Thank you guys for having me so much.
You bet. All right. That was entirely mind-blowing. I had watched the documentary twice before we interviewed Eddie, and the insights and what he added really, really blew my mind. I highly encourage everybody to watch Stuntman on Disney Plus. It is absolutely worth the price of admission. So great. Something really hit me during that interview, which was the whole concept of fear and how he was scared. He was scared every time he would do a stunt. He was absolutely terrified. I mean, he said it, I don't know how many times, varying levels of terror with regards to the Snake River Canyon jump. And it reminds me of a quote I saw a few days ago, which is, people fail to live their dreams because they're too busy living their fears. And then I just had an idea that maybe we'll make t-shirts that say, fear is not an excuse. So we are copywriting this because we're re-releasing it now. So don't copy us. But that's really the key. We have lived in fear for the last 2 years. And it doesn't mean that there isn't things to be scared of. It doesn't mean that you aren't going to be scared. But you need to sit down, rationalize, your preparation and whatever, and don't let fear get in the way, because everyone gets scared. This idea that only the fearless do scary things is completely ridiculous, and it needs to be killed.
I'm just thinking more t-shirts, but
you can pre-order and we'll do it that way.
We've made t-shirts. I think there's still some in the attic.
Yeah, but we need to
act alive now. Come and get them while they're hot.
Yeah, exactly.
Or
they might come back as retro. It'll become retro. So, anyways, that was just spectacular. We have a reminder here from MR Insurance that May's going to give us.
Yeah, don't forget to reach out to our sponsor again, Michael L. Relvis at MR Insurance for all your physician disability needs, because he's a great guy, would really like to help you, can give you a quote, and he's super amazing and helpful, and he's a great fan as well, which we appreciate. And I butchered up the link at the opening here, so remember to go. It's www.mr-disability-insurance.com, and I'll link that in the show notes as well, but it's mr-disability-insurance.com for Michael Relvis, for all your stunt person in medicine needs.
Or if you're just an orthopedic surgeon, that would work too. So, all right, we shall see you all next week.
Yeah. If you're still hanging on listening, are we going to update them on the infusions, or are we going to save that for another show?
Yeah, we're going to save that for another show. We're still in the data gathering phase of some of these alternative and complementary services that we've been exploring, and definitely good news. So we'll keep you hanging on that one.
All right. Otherwise, check our social media, Instagram and Facebook, because I've been posting some updates there. So see you all next week.
It's no secret that medicine is a bit, uptight. That's why Tim and I created BS Free MD, to mix things up a little and have fun in the process. Besides, we are having these exact same discussions all the time, so we thought we might as well invite everyone to the party. If you really like us, you can get plenty more and maybe see one of Tim's cool tattoos on our Instagram or Facebook pages at BS Free MD. See you next time.
While we try to keep BS Free MD as raw and real as possible, we can't be held responsible for any medical decisions or discussions had as a result of what you've heard on the show. We know, bummer. But the truth is, we really do care about your questions. So feel free to reach out to us by email at doc@bsfreemd.com.
Tim's fascinated with all the silicone in Silicon Valley.
It shouldn't be. That's right.
Anyway, are
It
you going to
shouldn't-
get some
it's-
silicone? How about lips?
No, lips. I get big duck lips.
I think you
Big-
need.
I need big duck lips. Will I look more attractive? And then like big booty implants.
Maybe some pec implants. Anyway,
You don't
Oh.
want my chest bigger than it already is. You bitch about it being too big as it is.
I'm here for the wine in California. The wine and the cheese, just the wine, not the silicone.
We got an entire wine cellar at home.
Oh, it's not nearly full enough. More wine, please.
You're good at whining. You've always been good at
Oh,
whining.
bugger off.